Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ms. Woodcock, I know you said a while ago that you're excited about what RADAC's accomplished, and I think we all are. But FDA issued revised guidance stating that it would focus its review efforts on at-home test and point-of-care COVID test applications from developers with the capacity to manufacture more than 500,000 tests per week within 3 months of being authorized. Why did the FDA move the goalpost at this particular time and suggest to companies that can't ramp up to that manufacturing that they're not going to get an accelerated EUA pathway?
Well, because of what some of the members have been discussing over the last several hours, that we have an urgent need for high volume home-based tests. And we have a queue. We have moved heaven and earth to get as many done as possible. We've authorized over 400 different kinds of tests or test collection devices during this pandemic. But as far as what the queue is, the priority, we're prioritizing the highest volume and just putting them to the front so that we can get home test kits into the hands of,
Dr. Woodcock,
people.
I get what you're doing.
Yeah.
My question is this. What does this say to the innovative company that's out there that doesn't have the manufacturing capacity and without us marrying them to a large manufacturing capacity? It's basically saying don't innovate because you're not going to get consideration under the EUA if you don't have a manufacturing capacity of 500,000 tests a week.
It says these are prioritized. It doesn't say we won't get to the others.
Well, get to the others. I mean, there's all a sense of urgency here. I just think that that might have been thought of before we did this. Let me go to you, Ms. Connell. I'm really challenged on this procurement of 500 million tests, as you can tell. And one, I don't understand why there's not been a release that came out of ASPR or BARDA publicly announcing here's how many we've contracted, that I've got to find it somewhere in a DOD contract that a very limited amount of people go to. It's certainly not one that I regularly looked at. But based on one of your contracts, we've got 13.6 million tests costing $190 million. I think that's from the vodka distributor. Mm-hmm. When I break that down, that's about $14 a test. Now, CMS just put out a new rule that mandated that insurers must cover up to 8 tests per person per week, per month. For a family of 4, that's 32 tests, and that they can reimburse at $12. Now, if I'm a manufacturer and I'm under a $12 reimbursement, or I can go over here and I can sell directly to the federal government and get $14, I'm probably going to sell to the federal government and get $14. Where am I wrong?
Thank you, Senator Burr. We continue to work to access the tests that will be distributed as part of the 500 million and the tests that you're referring to. So first of all, DOD by tradition has put out, whenever we've done an assisted acquisitions with them, they put out within the first 24 hours of that contract going out an announcement that the contract has gone out. So that's what you're seeing, and that's been de rigueur. It's been what the way DOD has approached this through our entire relationship. We're continuing to.
Why is ASPR not putting out a similar public statement?
We'd be happy to, and thank you, Senator. I'll go back and talk to the communications team and see if there's a companion press release that makes sense for us to put out.
Well, I'm not sure you addressed my concern, which is it's more profitable to sell to the federal government than it is put it on retail based upon the reimbursements that this administration has now required of insurers. I hope you'll think about that. This is alarming to me, and as we've all displayed, there are no tests out there. There are no tests on the shelves at Walgreens, CVS that people can go in, buy, and take home and do it. So it makes even more confusing CDC's policy that if you want to take a test, go ahead and take it. It's not required, but you can take it. You can't get it. Dr. Fauci, just very quickly, South African data suggests that Omicron may have an ability to build immunity to Delta. Delta does not have an immunity to, it does not build an immunity to Omicron. Have you got any comments on that? Cyprus announced a Delta Crom variant. Are you worried about that? And we've been about 3 weeks behind Israel throughout this whole thing. And even though we've seen South African data go up and go back down very quickly, Israel epidemiologists just this week said they expect that for the next 2 weeks they will see a doubling of the infections in Israel, meaning they're not following the same timeline that we saw in South Africa. How should we interpret that for the U.S.?
Okay, thank you very much for those questions, Senator. With regard to the cross protection, I think it's too early to tell because you're dealing with multiple population demography of people who've been previously infected, vaccinated, or what have you. It seems pretty clear that if you get infected with Omicron, you're going to get good protection against Omicron, but also good protection against some of the other spillovers. So we really yet to have seen, and I think the basis of your question is a reasonable one, if we wind up getting infected with Omicron at a very, very low level of pathogenicity, is that going to be sort of almost like a live attenuated vaccine? I don't think we can say that right now. We really have to see how things spread out when we see how that fares in the next variant. So there will be invariably another variant. We're going to have to take a look at whether or not there's going to be any protection there. That's the first thing. With regard to the Delta Cron, this new variant, right now, even though it's got, a bunch of mutations that people look at, it is not something that at least the WHO, who's looked at this carefully, feels that that has to be something that is of great concern. But we always keep our eye on it to make sure. So when you say it's not of a great concern now, the one encouraging thing about it is that it's been around for a while. It isn't something that just propped up. And yet Omicron completely outstripped it, as did Delta. So it doesn't look like it has the capability of being transmissible enough to be a problem. Nonetheless, we still keep an eye out on it. With regard to Israel, I'm sorry, I forgot your question about Israel. Could you repeat it?
And we are way over time here.
They run about 3 weeks in front of us.
Yeah.
Yet their experience is not up and down drastically like South Africa data begins to show. They went up, and now it looks like over the next 2 weeks, their epidemiologists say it's going to double and maybe double again before they hope it comes down. What should we expect?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Senator. But what it really reflects is that when you have an outbreak of a particular variant, how high it goes up, when it peaks and comes down is a reflection of what the status is in your country. Because if you look at what you saw in South Africa, they were almost free of Delta when they got Omicron. So Omicron sort of had the unfettered capability of going way up and way down. When you talk about what happened in Israel, that's a different population. It's a mostly vaccinated population, so they're likely going to see breakthrough infections. In the United States, we have such a large country with such differences in vaccinations versus infections, et cetera, that we believe we will see it peak and we will see it come down. But it's very difficult to predict whether it's going to be a sharp decrease or whether it's going to do this. Our own feeling, and I believe that Dr. Walensky feels the same way as I do, that it's going to vary depending upon where in the country you are, how much infection you had previously, what the level of vaccination is. So we may see a peak up and down in some regions of the country and a peak up and doing this in other regions of the country. Thank you.